Dear audience, I am Mark, and I am here today to... Now let's examine an alternative Kate Ashley. You're involved in a terrible case. The 16th of July was Edlund's birthday. She was born in 1982, the youngest of her mom, Vikki. Katrina was one of two sisters, and Chad, an elder brother, and a sister Miranda was my younger sister's name. Admired Katrina, her older sister. Many times, Miranda would try on Katrina's clothing and applied her cosmetics while admiring and aspired to emulate her every move throughout. Through the years, Katrina and Miranda became a bond and grew closer to one other cousins rather than sisters during Katrina's at an early age. Following her parents' divorce, reared by her mother, Katrina lived with her in Illinois' Machesney Park, a bedroom hamlet situated beyond the urban core. Witnesses of Katrina's life characterized her as a kind and lively person. Katrina has a special fondness for the winter season and had a great time providing her pals with humorous presents and family as a whole. Katrina felt nothing but joy, passionate about her faith. She felt compelled to lend a hand to those in need and was eager to volunteer her services in spite of the fact that Katrina cherished the fact that her desire for love persisted, who were led to assume she had finally found her prince. Delightful moment, she met Todd Smith while he was just 20 years old. Todd became a financial advisor who was the sole proprietor of company and operated from the comfort of his own home. 3 female offspring, in spite of romance, blossomed between the two. Despite Todd's accommodating work schedule enabled them to go throughout the world for 3 years into the romance that developed between Todd and Katrina, which the couple's daughter joyfully embraced, organized a little celebration at a nearby. Katrina was over the moon about the park. She cherished their potential future together stepsisters and was excited to establish a promising future beside Todd Vikki, Katrina's mom, and her siblings. Affectionate toward Todd, Chad and Miranda looked up to him and had faith in him, to look after Katrina and had faith in him. Their chemistry was undeniable after getting married. Katrina and Todd Machesney Park was the starting point for the year 2012, when we were married. A 30-year-old lady named Katrina Smith Vikki, her mother, and informed her that she was sitting on a friend's couch while they chat. Katrina brought up the fact that thought about dropping by for supper on I had some news to share with you on October 24th. Something seemed off to her mom, Vikki, occurring, but she had no idea what it may occur prior to ending the call. As promised, Vikki will prepare Katrina's beloved meal of homemade chicken and dumplings, yet it's highly unlikely that she'd ever chance to make good on that commitment. Many days subsequent to the phone conversation, Katrina vanished, and Vikki was compelled to do not reconnect with her till 5 p.m. on the 23rd of October. Todd Smith dialed 911 to document his wife's disappearance. Katrina Smith, Todd notified people about informant that Katrina was engaging in house-sitting on behalf of a buddy, and he had failed to get in touch with her for a few hours, he declared. When he drove up to a vacant house, her lodgings, Miranda and the brother and sister of Chad Katrina became worried when they found out about her mysterious Chad, who was undergoing training with American forces stationed in Oklahoma, swiftly took to the air travel to Illinois to provide a hand with the investigation of, on the evening of the 23rd, he had a citizen reported an incident to the authorities by forgotten car along the Rock River. As to the resident's account, the vehicle was not lying on the side of the road, but rather in a property line as though it were a deserted easement in a flash, as the cops showed up to look into the car that was involved in the find out that the license plate belongs. While inspecting the vehicle, Katrina Smith, there was no indication of a fight, or as soon as Katrina's mom, Vikki, learningized that her daughter's vehicle ended up in a ditch after being left behind on a stranger's driveway in an unknown location where she had reason to believe that evil had tragedy befell her daughter, it constituted the sole reasonable rationale that was comprehensible to. If Katrina's vehicle was in that vicinity, Vikki somebody had abducted her and left the vehicle parked. Katrina's vehicle was subsequently located by her. The situation was formally labeled as a someone who has gone missing, and the effort to find her picked up steam at 11 p.m. throughout the month of October. On the 12th, authorities transported Todd Smith to law enforcement agency of Winnebago County at the time of the official interview that Todd shared with. Moreover, he had not seen his spouse, Andy, on October 22nd. Todd stated that Katrina went back to her house just long enough to get some laundry done. Her job interview was quite important, the day after, while the washing machine was running. The suspect was briefed by Todd on the subject of leaving. Katrina headed to the mall to purchase things and got back home at 8:30 in the evening. Being said that Todd brought up the fact that Katrina departed swiftly, returning home for one last, during which Todd said that Katrina actually told him she needed to make one final stop at Accomplish before going back to her home, was watching over a friend's house that day following the categorization of Katrina as a Todd Smith, who was reported missing, turned to the news outlets to express his concern for the safety of his wife come back in a devastating and appealing to his emotions. Todd collapsed moved to tears, as he conveyed his frantic wish to reunite with his wife Katrina. He requested the public's assistance by urging anyone familiar with Katrina's, when will they be able to come out, and report specifics. As time went on, Katrina's disappearance was more closely monitored in team members, including police officers and those who volunteered their services, and in an attempt to find the vanishing woman, their endeavors were narrowly concentrated on a park situated close to the area where their vehicle had been left behind. The authorities, I was hoping that any proof or hints in relation to the possibility that she vanished came across in the area when Chad was in Illinois, when Katrina's brother made it. During his time in the military in Oklahoma at the park, everyone gathered to search with him. To Katrina, Chad, by means of his military education, dominated the investigation gathering that he meticulously planned using a map and split up the arriving volunteers in order to find Katrina on Chad's troops, those on the hunt for making sure that an investigation was carried out in its entirety since the parks were combed through by the police. Canines and proceeded to stroll side by side. A straight line was utilized in this strategy to traverse as much terrain as you can and make sure that nothing was omitted of proof, regardless of its size. Officials were extremely cautious to guarantee. They were very careful not to miss any detail in their mission to locate Katrina's mother. Vikki ran posters advertising missing persons for all across town. K.R. Trina abandoned these posters at convenience stores' shop fixtures, including Vikki's primary, to raise people's consciousness and see to it that a maximum of received word of Katrina's her absence, though consuming sorrow and terror of discovering Vikki was unable to care for her daughter's body. Take part in the investigation all during this challenging period, Todd, Katrina's spouse, stayed emotionally unstable. Chad urged Todd to maintain his resolve by they had to keep their attention on him. Upon discovering Katrina, he remained to support Todd. While experiencing overwhelming sympathy for his grieving cousin, a police officer found out the spot where Katrina's vehicle was located along the path he had come from. He discovered more when he searched her car. Things that were hers, including these were the towels and cell phone that show up as a tool for removing blood. It became apparent that one individual had been getting rid of Katrina's stuff as they distanced themselves from her forlorn automobile. Sadly, the authorities lacked indicator of Katrina's location at that point, though they had a hunch that tragic event had befallen her. The things discovered ended up being transported to testing in the crime lab, and law enforcement anxiously anticipated the outcomes of as the authorities conduct their inquiry, started investigating Katrina's private life, spent probing for hints that could clarify to her officers' investigation into as part of the probe into Katrina's. They planned to get a thorough comprehension of each aspect of her life that our investigation encompassed, looking at Katrina's potential partnerships that do not include her spouse, looking into the possibility of any participation engaged in illicit drug use or gambling, and taking careful notes on every habits with which the police spoke relatives and friends of Katrina to obtain this vital data. These everyone involved described the compassionate Katrina diligent worker, who reliably organized her tasks in a logical order and stayed away from any dubious family and friends of Katrina, boasted about her notoriety because her job and her commitment to continuing to put in long hours based on what they have said. She never displayed any indications of dependency or careless actions. In reality, praised her for being a devoted wife and a dedicated lady who was never undermined her honesty throughout. Look for Katrina. A lady delivered a fascinating piece of advice from this lady. A blue automobile had been observed by her. Being in line with Katrina's vehicle came to a halt before crossing the Rock River that fateful night she vanished. She could reach into the open trunk of the vehicle and observe a figure genuflecting in its rear, though, unfortunately, the lady couldn't supply any certain information, such the individual's the woman's gender or race upon her arrival. Subsequent steps and reported the occurrence to cops started to lead the police speculate on the likelihood that Katrina might have found their way into the river. As for foul play, though, they were still short, hard data to back up. This hypothesis police were aware that they had to explore further to determine if someone had a reason to damage. Regardless of assertions that Katrina and then she and her spouse, Todd, were blissfully wedded. There was continued interest in Todd during the officials were skeptical, since there was always have the chance to uncover disagreements or hidden agendas. In a marriage, the examination of Katrina's cases of disappearance persisted, and the authorities got information that steered them toward they probably found out about a young man living in the area who displayed an acute. When it came to Katrina, this fixation returned to prior to this year's hurricane season, spoke with her buddies a teen, the young man from her church, who displayed a pathological fixation on her, asserted that the minor had participated for the purposes of voyeurism eavesdropping on Katrina. As Katrina peered out her bedroom window, she began to becoming more anxious over this period because of the way the adolescent acts, despite the fact that peeping finally came to an end as the adolescent left for university. The police department became concerned about the adolescents eventually made it back to their hometown and went back to following Katrina. Because of it, they committed substantial funds to find him after 3 days of searching in Katrina's case. Her mobile phone, investigated in the laboratory for criminal investigations, uncovered vital indications that the device was an informational goldmine for the looking into police officers through obtained Katrina's mobile phone. New understandings about her SMS messages, images for both incoming and outgoing chats media, and even her global positioning system whereabouts, as supplied by Katrina's mobile device law enforcement officials with extensive expertise so that they can assemble a greater clarity regarding Katrina's as an example. Students learned about that she was being unfaithful to her husband's relationship with a colleague named Guy Katrina, and Gabriel's relationship, and Guy Gabriel started off with a seemingly harmless. They first crossed paths one evening after work. They kept it secret, as their bond deepened more powerful and their love blossomed engaged. But the investigators' an investigation into Gabriel's history uncovered a shadowy aspect that the police found out about man Gabriel's background included domestic violence assault. In addition to the investigators came across Guy's text messages. Gabriel confronts Katrina, ordering her to ditch her spouse Todd in favor of him because two of the violent past of the man known as Gabriel, and through his communications with Katrina, he transformed into the #1 suspect in her abduction the police suspected that the suspect Katrina irritated Gabriel because she had not reacting to his advances and abandoning her husband when the family of Katrina discovered the truth about her extramarital affair regarding Todd. They were utterly surprised. It was widely believed that Katrina and Todd exemplified perfection, and delighted pair to learn that Katrina had participated in such treachery departed Todd, who stunned and shocked everyone never knew about the affair his wife was having, unless what the police probe uncovered his wife's news devastated him. Had been cheating on him. Angry Gabriel encountered law enforcement searching for the whereabouts of Katrina at the law enforcement agency in charge of a while. As we were talking to the guy, felt anxious, even if he acknowledged in the direction of an affair with Katrina, though the individual adamantly denied being involved in. According to Guy, Katrina vanished. The night Katrina went, he was at work, disappearing. While authorities probed the affair that Katrina had with her co-worker Gabriel, they were made aware of a situation happened 2 weeks prior to Katrina. I disappeared after witnesses informed authorities that the car repair company was closing for lunch, the place where Katrina and Guy were employed. From while standing outside, the workers engaged in an ebony Volkswagen. Jetta raced over parking lot. The driver, wearing a mask, hurled a pile of flyers through the open window of the vehicle. The papers plummeted from the sky onto the sunroof and came tumbling down to the ground as the passers-by gathered outside the vehicle raced off. The crew members grabbed the paperwork and claimed to be flyers, an insulting remark against Katrina and that of Guy Gabriel connection, although nobody was aware of, was behind the wheel of a Volkswagen Jetta when Katrina's hairstylist was interrogated by the police. The fact that Katrina had confided in her, concerned about her sense of security, and saying that one wants to get a gun so that one shield herself from harm, Katrina had said she was worried that someone was tailing her. As well as making a purchase to have her device detection on the phone, was performed at scene of the crime at the police garage. Katrina's vehicle was inspected by the authorities for proof that a gadget that scientists used luminol, a formula that undergoes a reaction when exposed to blood to create an attractive illuminated by the luminol, the existence of a considerable quantity of blood in the place in Katrina's vehicle. Oral accompaniment. Oral accompaniment. He came to the realization that a thing that was deceased person, emergency services were summoned. Reclaim the corpse, and after yanking it upon their descent from the ocean, they found that was a woman's body. Yet it was at first challenging to learn body's identification since it had decayed. They were unsure if it was, in that case, Katrina Smith or not. The corpse delivered to the office of the medical examiner workplace in which employees carried out death investigation through autopsy. In order to positively identify the tooth fragments, a county dental received the records after conducting the test. The specialist matched the teeth found on the fossil on file with Katrina Smith and came to a conclusion that the corpse recovered from the waterway was undoubtedly Katrina Smith's, as the main reason for the demise, severe brain injury from a blow, while after learning that Katrina's body had her body discovered and her murder committed by a severe blow to the skull, they were all broke down in tears upon hearing the news distressing, and their feelings struck a chord with them as they worked through the scope of the disaster that Katrina had caused. Vikki's mother was taken aback when became aware of the news when she extremely severe physical abuse and enduring the pain in the brain for police in Vikki, located the adolescent accused of stalking a young man, Katrina, and he was exonerated from any suspicion following the verification of his alibi. He was present on campus at his university throughout when Katrina went missing and death penalty. This affirmation wiped him out both as a possible suspect, and the authorities began to focus on Katrina's romantic partner, not in her marriage. That Gabriel guy informed the cops that he had someone to cover for Katrina that night went missing. He claimed to have been, whilst on the clock to back up management at his claim guy's company offered there the employee's time card, verified that he had spent the evening at my job. In addition, a number of colleagues verified Guy's alibi, noting that they had caught a glimpse of him at their employment with the individual. Gabriel's alibi has verified that the authorities have ceased doubtful about his role in the murder and disappearance of Katrina, while Gabriel, the man, had ceased to be believed the authorities were trying to locate him, viewpoint regarding the entities that might have been harmed. Someone close to Katrina revealed that Katrina's spouse, Todd, displayed domineering his actions that prompted him to lobby. He encouraged Katrina to end her marriage, held the view that Todd's authoritarian personality might have intensified to the point that physical hazard as authorities dug farther into Katrina and Todd Smith's marriage. Several worrying details surfaced initially. It was found out that Katrina wished to end their marriage, Todd, to a number of individuals, not to mention according to the authorities. Katrina had really meeting with a divorce lawyer the day before with her gone missing, despite Katrina's assertion that her friend's house was her temporary residence that the police found out she possessed, took up residence there after she and Todd ended after data collection. In interrogating suspects, the authorities believed Todd to be the mastermind behind unsolved mysteries surrounding Katrina's flyer at work. This distrust intensified as soon as the cops found out that Todd had been behind the wheel of a black Volkswagen Jetta for the same vehicle's make, model, and color concerning the flyer incident, and when these circumstances also caused Todd to feel uneasy, claimed to have driven the test vehicle around in the midst of the situation, happened when the authorities notified family of Katrina that, in addition to being the murder's primary suspect, but also upon learning that he was already detained, they were utterly taken aback and speechless. They had cherished and esteemed Todd throughout with him as more than simply an in-law. The news caused a stir among all. Vikki, Katrina's mother, was saddened, in particular impacted the process of her daughter's prospective spouse, May. The person who killed her abandoned her very sick. It was inconceivable to her that Todd might have taken action because Vikki had consistently put her faith in and revered Todd and his concept that may be capable of committing such a horrific act. Cops were never even considered was informed about Todd's financial status after its disclosure that the investment firm he has got into legal difficulties with Katrina's job provided the majority of her income for the household using this data. The official ERS theorized that if Sandy was going to abandon Todd and she would take the money with her girls. Todd might have been prompted to give serious thought to killing his wife, to acquire access to such monies so that in their pursuit of proof, the authorities seized a warrant for the investigation of Todd and Katrina's investigators' residence. Throughout the hunt found a baseball in a hidden spot upon further inspection of the garage. They came over brays of blood while batting realization led them to assume that it can potentially serve as the tool that was once responsible for murder. The wounds that Katrina had received were hurt by forceful blows, which suitable for usage with a bat. The detectives ran a genetic analysis on using the bat as evidence that their fears were correct. Examination verified that the blood of Katrina was establishing contact while on the field, when the murder weapon was in contact with the victim. The investigators also made an additional error across a huge expanse beneath the vehicle, which had been thoroughly disinfected after conducting additional research. They found that the streaks of blood discovered beneath the car match Katrina's genetic makeup after 30 days. Her subsequent to Katrina Smith's murder spouse, Todd Smith, was taken into custody and accused of her murder. His detention ensued to her family's relief on January the 11th. The trial of Todd started in 2017 and the state argued its argument to the jury using artwork and accurate depiction of the hurricane's fateful night. Tragically, it came to light that Katrina was just meeting with a divorce lawyer to address the issues plaguing her marriage. This getting together was the first step in the state's case, when it contended that Hurricane Katrina's choice to pursue legal aid pointed to a distressed connection based on the state visiting Todd at his place. Was Katrina's plan for doing laundry in order to be ready for work the interview that she had planned for the next morning while she was there? Katrina, was accused by the prosecution of informed Todd without a doubt that marriage had officially ended with this proclamation. As a result of their argument, Todd reacted harshly. The government said that Todd had a meltdown when Katrina was in the garage, got furious, picked up a baseball bat, and brutally mangled her until she died. Following the confirmation of Katrina's dead body, then Todd allegedly moved her into her vehicle's trunk. He proceeded in the direction of an isolated spot called Rock River. There, he dismembered her by launching it from a neighboring bridge after the body of Katrina was disposed of. Todd left her vehicle parked on the side of the sidewalk on his way home to removed any proof that he had gotten rid of her cellular device and the crimson bathrobes he possessed to wash the gauge. The jury ultimately decided that Todd guilty and handed down a 55-year prison term in prison.